Cindy Folkers is on the line with us. She is the specialist on radiation and health at beyondnuclear.org. Cindy, welcome back to the program.
Thank you so much.
What is the very latest news that you have on what's going on in Japan?
Well, the very latest news that I have is that they're still fighting to contain. They have tried to take seawater and dump it on the reactors, and the wind is blowing it away. And it looks like they're headed toward meltdown. But again, the very latest isn't necessarily the very latest. It changes really, really quickly.
Yeah. And earlier we talked with,
I should say, full core possibly.
Right.
Yeah.
Earlier we talked with Paul Gunter, your colleague, or a colleague of yours, and he said that reactor number 3 is actually a plutonium, a partially plutonium-fueled reactor, and that's why they're all freaked out about 3. Is that right?
Yes. Well, the one that's what's called MOX, mixed oxide fuel, and that particular reactor is of great concern because it can release plutonium, not just uranium.
Right.
And plutonium is one of the radionuclides that's considered one of the most deadly.
So what would be, you're a radiation and health specialist, what would be the radiation and health consequences to humans in the area, to anybody downwind, and to the chain of the food chain in the ocean if 3 were to go down and plutonium were to be released?
Well, plutonium is it goes into your system, and it can go to bone, it can go to different organs. But the problem with plutonium is that it's an alpha emitter. So if you want to get into a little bit of radiation science, there are different kinds of ways that these elements decay. And one of the ways that plutonium decays is by an alpha particle, which is actually very heavy. And when it hits your cell, it can really demolish it. It can make it very, very hard for the DNA in that cell to repair itself properly. So if you want a scale of damage, let's say an X-ray or something that emits gamma would be on a scale of 1 to 20, it would be 1 in damage. The alpha would be 20.
I see. So this is as bad as it gets.
In layman's terms, you could say it's 20 times more damaging. Of course, that's very complicated,
right,
to arrive at that.
And if already we've seen massive releases of cesium, strontium, iodine, and it was almost comical and frankly, I thought tragic to see a Weather Channel guy the other day going through this whole, and the good news is it's all going out to sea. And I'm thinking, wait a minute, I've spent a lot of time in Japan. These people eat fish. And we're importing a lot of fish from there, by the way. And a lot of our fish that we get from our West Coast, the Pacific is a big place, and they swim vast distances sometimes.
Right.
To what extent is the ecosystem of the Pacific Ocean going to be altered by this?
Well, I can't say for sure, obviously, because, again, the systems of our bodies and the wind and the water, they're very complex systems. Right. But I do know that, for instance, we get, and Europe gets, a lot of oysters from Japan. And oysters are bottom feeders. If this radioactive material is particulate, meaning little teeny solids suspended in the air, it can settle out in rain. It can rain down on the water, and some of it can soak to the bottom. So the heavier elements can soak to the bottom, depending on how deep the oyster beds are, and I think they're probably right off the coast. It'll settle down to the bottom, and they can pick it up, and it becomes part of them, and they can bioaccumulate it, which means they collect it in their systems. We take them in, and we eat them, and that goes for anybody that eats oysters. And the same thing would happen with the fish, and the more the fish, the higher in the food chain the fish are, the more the fish eat other fish, the higher the radionuclide content in those fish will be.
So it's going to be just like mercury. We've got for 100 years we've been burning coal. It's been throwing mercury into the air. The mercury comes down into the rivers and oceans, and now the very big fish like the tuna have concentrated this mercury, and of course in our rivers even the smaller fish have, and it's just mercury only. It's not going to be just mercury, which might cause neurological damage or autism or something. It's going to be stuff that really and truly kills you or causes cancer.
Right, and the thing about the isotopes are that they do have half-lives, so they will decay eventually to background state, which means they won't be harmful anymore. But for cesium and strontium, I think it's about 600 years for the total
down to
dangerous
1%.
life. The total dangerous life. And then for iodine, it goes down fairly quickly, although you've got to be very careful at the beginning. Plutonium is much longer, I think it's 20,000 years for some, couple 100,000 for other kinds of plutonium.
Wow. And humans have been on this earth 165,000 years, just for the record. I mean, those are the oldest human fossils that have been found. And we're talking about blowing out something that has that's going to be around for longer than we have. I mean,
yes. I mean, that's part of the problem with trying to, quote-unquote, dispose of the nuclear waste. There is no disposal. There is only storage, and it will have to be watched, I'm afraid.
Right.
But that's not out in the environment yet, although that is a worry when you go to store something like that and you're looking at, several thousands of years of human beings. I'm not even sure what we'll look like by that time.
That's right. Yeah, we look quite different than we did 300,000 years ago, for example, and we behave quite differently. And our culture is very different. And the situation with these reactors, there are these 6 reactors. There's number 3 is the one with the most plutonium, but don't all of them have some plutonium? And as a result, just of normal fission, and are all of them storing the nuclear waste on the roofs above them, and is that the biggest danger right now?
I know for sure that the Mark I BWR, that's how the storage of the fuel that's quote unquote used, we call it irradiated, that's where they store on sort of on the roof like that, like we've seen in the news. The question of plutonium production, absolutely, it does not have to be a MOX core. Uranium fueled reactors produce plutonium as a matter of course. So a 1,000-megawatt reactor in this country, I think it does 20 bombs worth of plutonium a year.
That it produces. And then you've just got to pull that waste out and centrifuge out the plutonium if you want to make a bomb out of it.
Yes, absolutely. And that's the other thing that my organization tries to bring to light is the connection between what is supposed to be civilian peaceful use of this technology versus what can happen if people want to build a bomb. And if people don't care a lot for the safety and health of their workers, they can build one even quicker without safety standards.
Which is why there is so much concern about nuclear. What does a full core meltdown mean? We just have a minute left, by the way.
Yeah, a full core meltdown means... it melts down into the containment, but I guess the real problem is, does it explode when it does that? Does it have access to the air when it does that? And if it explodes like it did at Chernobyl, you can carry that material for thousands of miles, depending on the force of that explosion, how high up in the atmosphere it gets.
Right. Do we have any sense of how high the stuff has gotten so far? Has any of it gotten into the stratosphere where it'd be in the winds coming here?
I think it's too early to tell that. We do know that there was a map out of I believe it's a UN agency that did this map, and they're saying that very little of it will reach the West Coast. I think this was as of yesterday. But that's why, in order to take responsibility for what's going on or what may happen, we have citizen groups monitoring the West Coast area of the U.S. to see.
And people can get that information over at beyondnuclear.org?
Yes, they'll end up emailing me, and I can email them.
Okay, great. Cindy Folkers, thank you so much, Cindy, for being with us.
Thank you.
A specialist in radiation and health at beyondnuclear.org.